everyone. It is Sunday night and we are coming to you live from inside of Bat City Comic Professionals in Bradenton, Florida to help you wind down your weekend. As always, I'm your host, Shannon Live, aka Small Press Shann, here to get you excited about, well, quite frankly, a lot of books, because we have so many indie and small press books that have come out in the last 2 weeks, and since we weren't here last week because of New York Comic Con, we're gonna go through all of them this week. I know, it's late. It's because it apparently takes more than 6.5 hours to read all of these books. Who knew? I did, because I did it, but also because I've done it before, so I should have known. But we did our best, and here we are, and we're going to talk about all of them because I'm so excited about that. But before we do, if we're going to wind down our weekend, of course, we have to have a wine to do it with. And so today, we are drinking, I already forgot, Cuatro Rayas, which is a Tempranillo, which is, it's got this beautiful bee label. I don't know which way to turn the beautiful bee because it's so pretty. And so we're gonna try this out, and see how it is. Of course, I expect that it's gonna be, somewhat peppery. I can smell it. It smells like a Tempranillo. That's pretty much what it smells like to me.
Wow, weird. The sweetness is honey.
It is.
It is a little honey.
It does taste like it has a little honey in it. Does it say that on here?
That's the bee. Well, I looked it up online first.
That's
why there's a bee on it, is because they use natural honey from the area.
You can tell it's got a little bit of a honey to it, but still has the like peppery spice to it, which is kind of a nice blend. And I've never had wine with honey infused into it that was like not like a white sugar based thing.
It's actually very nice.
Yeah.
It's very pleasant.
Gives it a nice texture. Like not quite like a full like buttery texture, but still like a soft smoothness to it. It's a very nice wine. I cannot wait to see how, like, what the opening of the spice side does to the honey side. But what kind of red fruits are these? Did you see that in your research?
Plum, blackcurrant, blackberry, regular Tempranillo.
Typical Tempranillo blends.
Stuff.
Yeah.
It is Tempranillo from Spain, so you get everything in it.
Yeah.
And I definitely taste the leather.
And then it is done in oak. It says it spends 3 months in oak. It says it's got intense aromas with hints of ripe berries, and perfectly balanced, soft, velvety on the palate is the things it claims to be, which I think I get all of those things. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really nice.
It's a really nice, smooth wine.
Wow.
Yeah. I like this. This was a good choice, Matt. Is this available at Total Wine, Costco? Where can we find this?
I believe ABC Wine and Spirits.
ABC Wine and Spirits. Okay. Well, that means, gotta check it out. But definitely a good one to take another. Maybe
$12, $13. Not very expensive.
I was gonna say, if it came from ABC, you probably paid like a decent amount for it. Yeah. That's nice. It's very nice for that price. It's the more I drink it, the more, like, the flavors blend perfectly. Yeah. It says it's got a well-blended, like, flavor palette, and it's not lying. They are definitely properly claiming what they're doing. We've got a ton of books to talk about, so I'm not going to keep you here forever talking about all this stuff, but most of you that come to Bat City know I just got back from New York Comic Con. I just want to do a big shout out to Reed Pop for having us out again to run Retailer Day, and to Comics Pro for having me as Director of Education and Vice President go out there and represent and get to run Retailer Day on that Wednesday. It was a lot of fun. Thank you to all of our awesome publisher friends who spent time with us. We spent so much time with our good friends at Ignition, and so it was really great to see them and to see friends from all of our other different publishing companies. Our awesome friends at Square Enix who were on panels with us. It was our super shout out to our friend Sid, who you may know from Bat City, who came out and spoke on a panel with us. Just so many people just were awesome. We had 28 presenters that day, including Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane, and it was so much fun. And just a big shout out to Jim Lee for just an amazingly beautiful speech, and for Todd just always taking retailer questions. Such a great time. So anyway, I'm not going to regale you with all the stories of New York Comic Con because there is 85 books to talk about, and so I don't want to overwhelm you with all of that, but I do want to say a couple things for Bat City specifically. We had a lot of great activities this last week. We had Ladies Night, we had our quarterly subscriber potluck, and this time was a Halloween party, so shout out to Steve, aka Goth Steve, for his awesome Halloween costume win for that. We had an awesome time at Comic Creation Workshops yesterday. That said, there is even more awesome stuff to come for the Halloween season at Bat City, and I want to tell you about those really fast before we talk about books. One is this Friday from 5 to 9:30. We have, or 5 to 9, we have our inaugural Gothic book fair and night market. I am so excited about this. We're going to have so many horror artists and Gothic style artists out there. We're going to have some oddities vendors. We're going to have so much fun stuff going on. We're going to have a book fair of horror books with all kinds of cool books. Which will include comics and graphic novels and stuff as well. And traditional novels. It's going to have all kinds of stuff. It's going to be a really fun time. That's this Friday at 5 p.m. There is a ton of creative artists and oddities vendors that we haven't ever had at Bat City before, so it's going to be really cool to see some new witchy and fun, spooky kind of artists out. This is a really good one for adults who are looking for something fun to do for the Halloween season, but there will be kid-friendly books and everything available in the sale as well, so if you want to bring some kids who want to dress up in their Halloween costumes encouraged for everybody. But if you are looking for something to do that is more family-oriented, Saturday, October 25th, which is this Saturday coming up, we are going to be having our Bat-tastic Halloween. We are going to have free trigger-read comics. We are going to have some activities for kids. We're going to have some artists and vendors out there again as well. And we're going to have Anthony Pizzo out there doing free sketches for the kids. But from that event here at Bat City is 11 to 4, but between the hours 11 and 2, you're also going to be able to trick-or-treat Old Manatee. And so a bunch of our neighboring businesses are also going to have candy and fun things going on, so you'll be able to go by Central Cafe and Vernona and Vintage Vine and Riverside Barbershop and Ken's Poke and all kinds of places on the street. Will have a little map that you can pick up and you can go and you can get some candy. So it's a great way to trick-or-treat during the day and give the kids an extra chance to wear their costume, or give yourself an extra chance to wear your costumes, and go out and experience all that the Old Manatee neighborhood has to offer. And we'll be posting even more about that, but all of those event information details are already on our Facebook page, so if you want to see either more information of either of those events, you can definitely check them out. You're not going to want to miss them. We're going to be talking about them all week on our social media. So share it with your friends and get excited, because it's Halloween and it's a great time to celebrate with us. Okay, that said, again, 85 books, and it's already late, so I'm going to talk to you about these 85 books, but I'm going to do it after I take another drink of this wine. Good. Okay, wow, that's really good, actually. I was just saying that at first, and now I'm like, wow, that kicked in nicely. But we're going to jump into these books, because there is, like I said, a lot, and I'm going to try to go through them and give you all the information you need to know as quickly as possible. Starting with I Hate Fairyland, issue 45 from Image Comics. I cannot believe that we are so far into I Hate Fairyland, but this is another one of those great ones where Scotty kind of uses other characters that are in that open public domain world that you can kind of put into Fairyland. If you don't know the story, it is all about a young girl named Gert who goes to a place called Fairyland where she is supposed to go on a magical adventure to get a key that will lead her back to her home. Here we are 35 years later. Gert is still stuck there. She can't get out, and now she's trying to find alternative ways to get out of the world that she's still stuck in the body of the small child that she was. And she has recently been told that there is a demon that she could go, like this like demon type spirit that opens up a portal when it sneezes like every 300 billion years, and it just happens that this is one of those billions of years. So she needs to get into the middle of the water, and the only person that can take her there is the sailor man himself. That's right, Popeye. And so Popeye and Gert go on a fabulous fun adventure, but Olive Oil isn't quite happy with that adventure and not being included. And we get some fun stuff. This one is honestly a great standalone issue if you're like, I just want to get to know Gert and I want to see some of these things. This is just a good one because the whole thing is contained in here. But she finally kind of meets her match in Popeye, and that somebody else that seems like he shouldn't have a lot of muscle power, but definitely never loses a battle. We have the wrap-up of Farmhand. This is issue 26 of Farmhand from Image Comics, and this is the end of Rob Gilroy's massively, sporous universe that has been going on for years now. If you don't know the story of Farmhand, a man realizes one day that he can plant some seeds, and those seeds can grow humans, and that ends up obviously growing in a really bad direction. And we've spent the last 8 years of our lives watching this family deal with the problem of the fact that this has awakened an evil villain called Thorn, who has kind of taken the family's legacy and turned it into demon powers, essentially coming in and trying to kill everybody. In this last arc, we've been watching the family kind of come together and figure out how they're going to stop all of that. In this issue, we get our wrap-up. We fast forward into the future after the last battle that we saw in issue 25 and kind of go a little bit forward so we can see what that wrap-up epilogue kind of situation is. I love that we feel like we're getting a full wrap-up, and yet at the same time in this, Rob kind of still gives us that open ending that's like perfect for a horror movie where you're like, but what is going to happen next? And then is like, okay, well, by the end. It's really great. I love that it's over now because so many people who've been waiting for that moment to be able to jump in finally can, and I definitely recommend if you haven't read Farmhand, this is like 'tis the season. It is the harvest after all. You should be jumping into it. Transformers issue 25 from Image Comics, Skybound, and the Energon universe, which is our Transformers G.I. Joe world. This is actually the moment that is going to send us into a new time for Transformers, because Robert Kirkman has taken over the writing helm from Daniel Warren Johnson. And in this issue, we actually get to see two different kinds of art style. The first half of the book follows the Decepticons, and we get to see Jorge Corona, who's been on the book with Daniel Warren Johnson, still doing the art for that, before we do switch over to the Autobots, which becomes Dan Mora art, who is our ongoing artist for the story, and I'm going to switch to that so you can see it. But I do like that this kind of gives us two different pieces of the puzzle, because we have been seeing in the last little bit of Daniel Warren Johnson's run, we were kind of seeing the battle part of it all. And this gives us a chance to kind of slow down, and Kirkman takes us to, each of the sides kind of having that conversation and talking about, okay, the Decepticons are, Megatron's there now, and he's real mad about how they're not living up to the expectation of evil that he set, and he wants to take over. And something that we haven't really had happen on the Transformer side is we get that governmental approach to Optimus Prime saying hey, do you want to work with us? And by the way, we can provide you resources if you provide us protection. And so we're finally kind of slowing down from the battle that we've been in, taking that step back and getting the story resituated for where it's going to go under this new creative team. And it was definitely a great issue where you're like, ooh, there's so many doors that you close, and yet so many other ones that you opened up in the process of doing that. And I'm really excited to see where Transformers goes from here. Thundercats, issue 19 from Dynamite. If you are a fan of the Thundercats cartoons and you are not reading this, you definitely need to be, because it has all of the feelings of that kind of world back again. But we have been on Third Earth in this new Third Earth that they have come into to build their place after Thundara is destroyed, and they've been in this battle with the mutants. And if you've been reading the series, you know that Lion-O has disappeared and Chitara is in charge and has been just dealing with a bunch of stuff. And in the last issue, they went out trying to stop these mutants from attacking the base, but they did it at a distance, and that left the base exposed and actually put them all in a lot of danger. And this issue, they kind of realized that they are setting themselves up for that they're all not working as the team that they are meant to be, and not understanding the value that they had as a team, as they're trying to kind of figure too many things out and losing sight of what is happening. And Chitara has to kind of regroup the team and figure out that maybe they're not actually acting as the Thundercats, and they're just kind of acting as individual people here, and they need to pull it all together. And maybe they need to actually find Lion-O. The Sacrificers, issue 16 from Image Comics and the Giant Generator imprint. I am so excited this book is back. It's one of my favorite books on the shelf. I think this is quite possibly my favorite Rick Remender book of all time. It's just so good. And if you don't know the story, they do actually do a recap in this, because it's been so long since the last issue came out. But this is the story of a world where the gods have been taking a person from each family, from the different realms of their world, and consuming their souls. And so basically each family grows a kid for a sacrifice, and like somebody is just raised to be a sacrifice. And in our world, this pigeon finds out in the very beginning of the story that is what's happening. And he has been chosen by the other part of the gods who are against these people, to become the champion of the people. And he has been fighting against these gods and kind of destroying them. Meanwhile, at the same time, the daughter of the sun and the moon has lost her godly power and has had to kind of focus on just being a normal human, and has teamed up with some of the children of the world who are just like orphaned and struggling themselves. And that kind of comes to a head in this one, as she for the first time is in the same space as her godly father, who believes that she's been dead all this time. And so we do get to see the cross of all the stories in this issue. And Rick Remender just always does such a great job of giving you this beautiful story, as well as this beautiful commentary, and just layers upon layers of story depth to it. And this one issue alone is like so powerfully well written that if you're not reading Sacrificers, there's trades. I believe there's 2, maybe 3 trades already. It's probably 2. And so you should definitely grab them and check it out, because it's such a good book. We've got Hello Darkness, issue 15 from Boom Studios. This is one of our horror anthologies that's lining the shelves right now. And this one, as all of them, is filled with a bunch of different stories. And in the first one, we have a story of a demon that's kind of working its way through different people and just kind of destroying the world, and is like, I want to see what it's like to be in these different kinds of bodies. I'm just looking for something on this earth that feels as violent as I do, and ends up in the body of a cow, and that story goes in some weird places. And then we see a story that is about a lake that was once the home of like this beautiful place to visit, and slowly becomes more and more polluted by modern society, and kind of becomes a forgotten place until some dangerous things start coming from the water. And then we get another story of witches in the woods, and some gods and some monsters and some crones, essentially, that we're raising. I don't really know how we want to describe them. Demons, I guess, would be the best way. And just the impact that has on the rich, the people that they send to the demons after. And then the backup story in this is our ongoing backup story from R.L. Stine and Francavilla, which this is issue 2 of that. And about a guy who is kind of a detective in the horror world, and it's got that very like noir kind of sense to it, but he's been having these dreams, and in the dreams he's been dying, and a medium has told him if he dies 3 times in the dream he won't survive, and he has found himself in a deadly spot once again in this issue, and he is going to have to work quickly if he's going to figure out how to survive one more story. Witchblade, issue 15 from Image Comics and Top Cow. I am really liking this arc. The first 13 issues of the book were kind of giving us the same Witchblade story that we've known from the past of Sarah, the police officer who's trying to deal with corruption and finds the Witchblade, and it kind of just modernized it a little bit for us. And this feels like we're finally getting the story that could be the original story that Marguerite Bennett wanted to tell. And it involves a series of murders that's happening, and a young girl helps discover kind of more of the information about it. And it's such a weird situation that we see, because these murders are happening. They're very supernatural, but nobody seems to recognize that, and nobody's really investigating it except for Sarah and this teenage girl that she's paired up with. And as they kind of investigate a little bit more in this issue, things get a little crazier, and there's a little bit more to it. And we see a teenager who feels like she's ready to go and ready to be a part of this, and wants to help Sarah kind of almost panic and lose sight of it, because things get very supernatural and very dark very quickly. And is that the darkness coming out of the woodwork that we saw in that last little bit of the second arc, or is this something completely different? We really don't know yet. We're just kind of starting to figure it out, but I definitely see we're getting a really, really strong story in this one. And I love the duality of the two characters who both want to make a difference and yet are both completely terrified of what's going to fall into their lives by doing it. We've got Gotcha Man, issue 13 from Mad Cave. This is continuing the story. You know, we get a lot of the one and done kind of stories here in the Gotcha Man universe, but this is continuing the story we've built, where once again, the bad guy who, you know, has come out with this epic plan to stop them. And so basically the Science Ninja team has a bunch of different facilities that have been keeping the environment safe around the world. But our major bad guy has actually created these mech orcas that are coming up through the waterways and starting to attack them. And the Science Ninja team, you know, there's only 5 people on the team, so they're trying to stop it. But it turns out that there's like dozens and dozens of these orcas, and they're not able to communicate like fast enough and get to the places fast enough. And so they realize that maybe because they are mech, they can take out some kind of a mechanism that is kind of directing them and guiding them. And so they go after that. Meanwhile, at the same time, we actually see the former secondary team of the Science Ninja team, the trainees who were supposed to come up, who abandoned their post for the dark side, actually start to make themselves go through that final round of training and really accept like the brainwashing and the evilness that's coming to them. And so while we're fighting some evil orcas now, it sounds like we're going to be fighting some of our former friends in the next couple of issues. G.I. Joe, issue 12 from Image, Skybound, and our Energon universe. This is giving us that G.I. Joe side of the world. You know, we are combining Transformers and G.I. Joe, but we're not seeing too big of crossover points at this point, but I definitely think we're getting to a point where we will. And in this, Duke, who's the leader of the G.I. Joe unit, has been very adamant that the government be more forthcoming with him about whether or not there's other people doing missions. And of course they tell him, like, absolutely not. There are no other Joes. There's nobody out there. And then, of course, this whole issue is about, in fact, other G.I. Joe members who are out in the field, and they are trying to bring back an assassin who has been in a prison and is at the point where it's either get this person out, or this person, it might be taken out by the people inside of the prison. And like that that time is up. And so we get to see this search and rescue mission, and who's actually searching and who's actually rescuing. It's always fun to see. But at the same time, we've been seeing a lot of, animosity between Deathstroke and Cobra Commander, and whether or not they're actually working together or if they're working against each other kind of comes to more of a head in this issue, and we continue to see where that backstabbing is going to lead them as we build those pieces together. Flash Gordon, issue 12 from Mad Cave. In this arc of Flash Gordon, one of the things that has happened, the previous arc ended with him actually finding Dale and everything feeling like we were going to get some normalcy, only for that battle to end with finding out that there is a Flash Gordon from an alternate dimension, as well as like a Ming and all these other people. And now Flash from the other dimension and Flash from our dimension have switched places, and we are dealing with big problems on both sides. The Flash from the other dimension is actually a bad guy, and so he's here trying to destroy our galaxy and our world. And the Flash on the other side is being treated like he's a bad guy, because even though he's a hero, because he arrived and everybody was like, oh, we finally caught the evil Flash Gordon. And so both of them are having to try to figure out how to open up this dimensional portal, because bad Flash wants his army for taking over our world, and good Flash wants to get the crap out of the other world where he is considered the bad guy. And they're both in need of the same things on different sides. And so we're going to see them probably get there probably around the same time in that next issue, as they are going to have to come face to face at some point. The Power Fantasy, issue 12 from Image Comics. This is Kieran Gillen doing another massive universe building story like he did with The Wicked and Divine. But this time kind of taking a look at the ethics and the reality of superheroes. And if you had X-Men style superheroes and you put them into the real world and then you actually question their ethics, what would that look like? And a bunch of the characters in the last couple issues have been trying to take out essentially their Charles Xavier, the man who has the ability to see into and control people's minds, and so who kind of feels like he himself controls the ethics of the entire world, whether other people agree with that or not. And one of them devised a massive plan to take him out. And as of the last issue, we kind of thought that maybe that plan was successful. And in this issue, we get a little origin story and a little background to how this person's power actually works, and how there's more to this superpower, and how some of our superpowered beings actually understand truly what's going on, and how some of them feel like they've lost everything. But we do get to see a rise and fall, and maybe some rises again, like some different waves of this character. And it's really interesting to see how Kieran keeps building these characters in such intricacies and different ways as he evolves them all in the story. Falling in Love on the Path to Hell, issue 10 from Image. This story just also is another one that just kind of keeps getting bigger, and the characters more in depth as we go. But this is all about a cowboy and a woman who is a samurai, who both find themselves essentially in purgatory on the path to hell. And over the course of the last 10 issues, they have developed their own, not only just partnership in this battle against the evil things that are surrounding this world, which are mostly just people who are terrible and want to be evil, but they've also developed a relationship, and in the truth of the name of the title, they have fallen in love on the path to hell. And now they've been kind of given this opportunity to get out, and so they worked with somebody to create a plan that was going to find the pieces that could teleport them to the other side. Like maybe they could actually die. Maybe they could go back. Maybe the, Elysian fields or something would be waiting for them. Unfortunately, that plan blew up really badly at the end of the last issue. And so we find ourselves dealing with the fallout of this. And just when you're given that opportunity to finally have the perfect moment and everything doesn't matter anymore once you finally found somebody to be in love with. And so this is, you know, fighting for that love is more important kind of than fighting for yourself and your own perfect happy ending. And so we're going to see this continue with just this big epic story of love through the dangers of the afterlife as it unfolds. Herculoids, issue 9 from Dynamite. This is one of our Hanna-Barbera cartoon books coming to us from Dynamite. And in this story so far, we've recently learned that the Herculoids were kind of put here by this other like sentient race, and they were supposed to be protecting this planet and this massive knowledge bank and everything. And now the bad guy aliens have come and they've stolen the youngest Herculoid as a embodiment, a place that they could put this like sentient knowledge into and keep it and take it over. And now our family is trying to figure out how they can possibly get into space off of this planet and finally find a way to save their son. And so in this issue, the dad goes looking for more information and stumbles across some of the same technology that his son did in order to actually find it, and starts to build an actual plan of how this family can go out and save their son, and maybe it's not the end of the Herculoids forever. DuckTales. Woo! We've got issue 7 of DuckTales, also from Dynamite. It's part of their Disney line. This is such a fun little adventure. In the last issue, the kids, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, have been going on adventures with Scrooge, kind of learning about how he made his money and how why it matters to him so much. In this issue, they are told to clean up the vault and count some of Scrooge's money, and they accidentally lose $1 and start panicking because other than cleanliness and order, the one thing, of course, that Scrooge McDuck cares about the most is that all of his money is around where it's supposed to be. And so the kids go on their own adventure trying to figure out where the lost dollar could be, informing everybody that they meet that they've lost one of Scrooge McDuck's dollars, which of course makes everybody stress out. And so the adventure gets more absurd and hilarious as it goes along. And of course, you know, they've learned some life lessons along the way, but mostly just hijinks ensue, and it's just a fun time with Huey, Dewey, and Louie as they make silly mistakes the whole way through. We also, speaking of ducks, we have Darkwing Duck, and this is issue 6 from Dynamite of the new volume. This is our second volume already of Darkwing Duck at Dynamite. And in this issue, we actually learn the origin of how Darkwing Duck learned to be a master of disguise, which is hilarious because if you actually know Darkwing Duck, he never actually looks like he's in disguise. And so it's funny to see him actually go through this training session with this woman who is supposed to be the epic master of disguise, only to have her former sidekick come back angry and bitter and fight against Darkwing. And so Darkwing must go head to head with Master of Disguise villain in order to master his own fate and kind of become the assistant he needs to be, and also the hero he needs to be in order to become, that puts him on his path to being, of course, the great Darkwing Duck that we know and love. And it's just a fun little adventure. Again, all of these are kind of great, like one-offs in the same way that like episodes of the shows used to be, or still are in the case of DuckTales. And so it's fun if you're somebody who like loved those cartoons as a kid and you want to share, like remember it, or if you want to share it with your own kids if you have them now. They make great books for that. And another one that also falls into that category is Zootopia. We have issue 6 of this, which is the wrap-up of the case that we've been on. In this story, we've had our two main officers who have been trying to figure out what is going on with this mysterious case of all these crime sprees that have been breaking out. And basically, every time they find somebody who is a part of it, they have this cell phone situation where they're being told by some mysterious stranger through their cell phone that they need to do all of these things, and then the messages go missing. In this, they have this wild idea of who might be behind it, and they kind of start to piece together all the different puzzle pieces, and yet like you would be like, wow, you're making an absurd jump, and they're like, well, maybe we should go for it anyway. And they're like, the chief is like, well, what other options do we have? You've already made a mess of everything. You might as well go for it. And so we get to see some fun undercover work from other characters who don't get their day in the sun a lot, as Officer Wilde and Officer Hops finally solved the case they've been working on. Invincible Universe Battle Beast, issue 6 from Image and Skybound. I have no idea how long this series is, and every time I think, oh, this must be the last issue, I am wrong. And so this is the end of this arc, but it is not the end of Battle Beast's story. It does say in the back, I believe he's coming back in March, but if you've been following along, Battle Beast is from the Invincible world. He is a character who just really, really loves to fight and wants to die in one of those like epic, glorious battles. And in the last 6 issues, we've been watching as Battle Beast goes from like world to world, trying to find somebody who can destroy him. And he's finally found a place where there is a juggernaut where he should allegedly not be able to defeat. And he kind of does in this issue go head to head with that juggernaut and kind of meets his match a little bit in this. And yet, is that the end of the story? Obviously not, because I just told you there's another volume coming our way. But we do kind of see some big turns and some big changes, and a little bit more of the world open up. Then maybe this isn't just going to be the story of Battle Beast fighting, but maybe there's going to be even more coming our way in the Invincible universe as the story unfolds. Free Planet, issue 6 from Image Comics. If you don't know Free Planet, this is a big, massive new universe where they finally have figured out how to actually bring like an end to all wars on this planet. And they are like, we've got everything in line and it's all going to work out. But the thing about that is that like you really can't create a full world utopia, because everybody does everything differently. Like you still have like classism. You still have situations where like somebody commits a crime and it's like, okay, well, if we put them in prison, is that really free? Which is kind of what this issue is about. Like they've got some people who have been creating some crime sprees, and they're like, if we go and we arrest these people, if we put them in prison, are we still a free planet? And as they're having that conversation, it goes a little further, and some of the relationships actually start to develop between different people on the ship in this one. I do love that they always mix it up and have some pages that are in different directions. But they kind of have in this issue, like, not only the conversation of like, oh, well, what happens when we get... I'm going to hold this up because I love that they have in-universe, like, letters and stuff in the back, too. But not only do we get, like, oh, what happens, like, if we put people in prison, but they actually start to realize that if you do trade with different planets, and those planets don't want to work with your free planet, then do you have to change your governmental structure? And do you have to have, like, the problem of, like, again, can you be free if you have to work with other people? Like, you're relying on other people for trade. So you're not really completely free because you are beholden to that planet. And so there's always these conversations about, like, what does free really mean and who's actually free and who isn't on the planet. Blood and Thunder also hits issue 6 from Image Comics and the Skybound imprint. This is another one that kind of keeps just opening up more and more to the world. In the very first issue, we saw a young girl who isn't a police officer but kind of works as a bounty hunter for the police force, and she has this big gun that was her father's that talks and does all this cool stuff. And in the end of issue 1, she discovered somebody who was stealing books. And then in issue 2, she was asked to go after this prisoner. And in issue 3, we kind of saw how those stories intersected and what the thing was with the books. And now she's been on this mission. And now she actually comes face to face with the bad guy in this issue. And you kind of have to wonder who is actually the bad guy, because this is a planet that was never run by humans, that humans kind of came in and overtook. And the bad guy is supposedly this monstrous alien creature, and he's like, am I the bad guy though? And she has this face to face with them and learns so much about the history of these worlds and how it all got here. But also she's starting to learn, everybody keeps dropping hints about how she's not human and she's not of this world, and why is she defending them, and we still don't know what that means. And so I can't wait as the story unfolds to just kind of learn a little bit more about her. But also now I want to learn more about this villain, because now I think we've been chasing the wrong person, and I'm so curious about who we should be chasing. Definitely opened up a whole new world on that issue. Captain Planet and the Planeteers, issue 6 from Dynamite. This is the wrap-up of this, at least, arc, this Captain Planet for the time being. It's the classic story of Captain Planet. We've got the Planeteers, the people who can control the elements of earth, wind, fire, water, and heart. They come together, and with their rings of power, they create Captain Planet. And his job is to help them fight against Captain Pollution and save Gaia, the earth itself, and the power of Mother Earth from all this danger. They have been struggling to come together as a team over the last 5 issues, and when they finally did, Captain Planet's kind of been doing the big work, the heavy lifting against Captain Pollution, while they are trying to actually handle things on the Earthfront side and save Gaia. And in this issue, we do get to see how all of those different battles kind of come to play, but also what does it truly mean to be a Planeteer and to be a teammate is another question we kind of answer in this one. If you, again, are a fan of the 90s cartoons, this one, unlike the Darkwing Duck and the DuckTales and stuff, this one was one full story in all 6 issues, so you can't just pick up issue 6 and read it. You actually have to read all 6, but it's definitely like watching an arc of the story of the show. Godzilla, Here There Be Aliens, issue 5 from IDW, and this is the wrap-up of Here There Be Aliens, which is the 3rd volume in the Here There Be Godzilla world. And basically, if you don't know, the overarching story of the Here There Be world is that there's a secret society of people who know about kaiju and who kind of control what has been happening with kaiju attacks and kind of keep it under wraps over the, centuries and centuries of kaiju. In this one, we are in a world where the Xylians have come and they are taking over the world in both out there we can see it, and also hidden ways. And we have one guy who works for the government, and he's kind of been told it's his responsibility to take out his boss, who is one of those aliens, because without that they're not going to be able to stop them. And their mecha, King Ghidorah. We get to see some major kaiju battles in this issue. We have a Jet Jaguar in this world. We've got all kinds of stuff. And this is that epic conclusion, so I don't really want to tell you all of the twists and turns of who's on what side and what's going on. But if you like Godzilla, you don't have to read all of the Godzilla Here There Be's to follow along with this story. You can just jump into this one, or you can read the whole thing and have this massive adventure from the days of the pirates to American founding to here with aliens in the future. All right, the next couple of books are some of my absolute favorites right now, and this one is definitely a great place to start when I say absolute favorites. Lucky Devils, issue 5 from Image. I debated whether or not I wanted to even put this in my picks of the week because it's so good. And it's so nice to have this story back. If you don't know, this is from the same team that brought you Curse Words and 8 Billion Genies. This is all about 2 devils who decide that they want to they want to raise their station basically in this world, like the devil on your shoulders. Each kind, like, they get more and more notoriety and fame and money in the underworld by having more power for you. And the more people you influence, the more power they control, and the more, like, they get paid essentially and rise the ranks of their job. And these people realize that the humans that they've been assigned are very kind people, and so they're like, hey, let's reach their influence by helping them be kinder people and do the right thing, and kind of make, like, let's just lean into that. And so they've been doing that for a long time, and they've really stretched that influence. And now a lot of stuff is starting to happen in the underworld where bad things are happening, and it's kind of crumbling apart because devils are doing good work. But also, now all of this moment is kind of coming to crazy fruition. Like, you know, the devils are starting to fight amongst themselves. Like, this happy couple in this devil relationship is not so happy anymore, and lies and problems are starting to come to a head. Our little happy people are starting to see their own world crumble, because as they get bigger influence, it is corrupting them. Even though they're supposed to be staying good people, they are actually getting corrupted just by the power that they're having. And so that's causing them to make bad choices, which is, of course, not helping the devils with the good work they're trying to do. There's so many layers to this, and there's even more than that at the end of this issue that, like, we see. Like, we've got a bounty hunter who's trying to find who is doing the good work in hell, and that's, like, trying to, like, rein that all in and expose that to the upper level management of the demons. It's so good. If you liked 8 Billion Genies, you will love this story. You definitely should be reading it. It's another win from this creative team, and this issue definitely brings it back with, like, a 1-2 punch for sure. And if you watch this show, you know that this is one of my favorite books on the shelf. We have issue 5 of Never Wars from AMP Comics. This is a whole new universe where the Alice in Wonderland, like the Wonderland world, the Oz world, and and Neverland all are a part of this alternate universe where fairylands exist, essentially. And in fact, fairyland itself also exists. And there is a massive war that is going through these different places, mostly pushed out by the Jabberwocky. And we see our 3 main characters are Dorothy Gale from The Wizard of Oz, and the grandson of Alice and Peter Pan. And these kids are all kind of brought back into their different worlds respectively in order to figure out how to stop these wars that are happening. And over the last 5 issues, so many things have happened. I love that we find out in this series that the way that like a hook and a pan are chosen in Neverland is eventually, like, when Peter Pan does actually come to a point where he can no longer fly and he grows up, he becomes the next Hook. And the Peter Pan, like, the next, like, child takes his place. And this has led to them kind of feeling like they should work together. And in this issue, it's exactly that. Like, Hook and Pan are working together, and they're going to try to stop the Jabberwocky. And you just have to wonder if you can ever really trust a pirate. And meanwhile, at the same time, the Tin Man, the Lion, and the Scarecrow are dealing with their own problem. And also, the Queen of Hearts in Wonderland has lost her own head and is going to war one way or another. And we are getting to a point where all of this is going to come to a head. And yet, every time you're like, oh man, they are just going to send this to war and they're just going to move on, they're like, actually, here's 7 more layers to the story of adventure and craziness. And I love it so much. And as somebody who, you know, The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland are 2 of my favorite stories of all time. And so having those 2 worlds meet together is already enough to make me love you so much. But the writing and the storytelling and the development of this world is so good. I love it so much. AMP is crushing it. They Choose Violence, issue 5 from AWA. This is another one that I absolutely love. This is, has been wild. This is, such a crazy story, and like a book that just completely goes in different directions every time. This is about 3 women who are really tired of the racial injustice that they're seeing in America, and they decide the best thing that they can do is actually just take matters into their own hands. And so they start actually going after all of the people who are getting away with these injustices themselves and taking them out, and they go on like that for years, and then they kind of fall out of friendship, and then over the course of the issues they got back together as friends, and they started to go back on their killing spree that they were on. And they are a little sloppier and a little less prepared, and also a lot has changed, including the fact that there are people in this world who know about them now and who are actually trying to come after them. And they, in this is the last issue, they kind of found the head of all of this stuff, and they learned that there is a lot more going on in this world than they thought, and they just kind of have to come face to face with that. And that is exactly what they're doing in this issue, and they're having those confrontations. And the way this wraps was like, oh my god, you're just like, they just keep going. Like every time you're like, they're not gonna go any further, they keep pushing it. And you know what, it works so well. And again, like the narrative is so strong in this story of just, and that balance of what they're trying to say and what they're doing. So a great wrap up to that book. We've got Bloodletter issue 5 from Image Comics and your Spawn universe. This one is definitely leading us towards what is going to be happening in this Spawn universe. You know, we've noticed that, you probably noticed over the last few years that there's been a lot of these like small Spawn character stories coming out, and it was like, oh, nothing really connects though, they're all just like adventure stories within the Spawn universe. But now we're actually seeing that that's not the case, and there is something going on. And in this story, the character was trying to save this one particular person who is more that they needed to protect from all of this, and that they feel, and this, our character Bloodletter, really, really just does not like Alsum. It's just not like Spawn, and has been using their own magic and trying to get to this other side so that they can save this one particular person. And while this issue kind of wraps up that story and everything they're going through, it does actually expose that we are about to see some big stuff happen in the Spawn universe, which we saw at the end of Sam and Twitch, and we've been seeing at the end of different all the different issues, that like there's something coming, and that Spawn universe is actually going to be moving in a different direction soon. Creeping Below issue 4 from Boom Studios. This is also the wrap up of this book. And this is all about a girl who gets involved with a black metal band, and ends up being, goes out as like a fangirl and a groupie, and ends up being a sacrifice to this dark goddess that they are trying to appease with their dark music. And over the course of these 4 issues, we've actually seen her become the goddess, like the darkness and this forest, like witchcraft kind of situation herself. And she's coming back in this point and trying to get that revenge. And we get to see in this issue the exact like extraction of that revenge that she's been trying to get. And also just how far like that can go and how far it's going to stretch, and a little bit more of maybe what that looks like and what that means. Again, it's the last issue, so I don't want to spoil too much, so I don't want to show you too much, but there's definitely some big dark moments in that issue. Thundercats and Powerpuff Girls, issue 4 from Dynamite. This is also the wrap-up of this story. And if you didn't read this is basically the Powerpuff Girls get sucked into an alternate dimension, and that dimension, of course, is the one of the Thundercats. And they have been trying to figure out what happened, because all of the Thundercats, except for Tigra, have been turned into different little monsters and little beings, and so they've been trying to help save them, but they don't have any superpowers in this world, and so they've been having to do it the old-fashioned way, and actually work together as a team and just save the day. And in this issue, they are face to face with the villain, and their goal is to figure out how to get the rest of the Thundercats ready to go so that hopefully one of them can figure out maybe how to get them home. And we get to see just a fun little adventure of a team up that you probably never expected to happen, but here we are, and it's a lot of fun the whole way through. Monster High House Haunters, issue 4 from IDW. What a fun series this continues to be. I think that our good friend Anthony Pizzo describes this best because it is just Evil Dead 2 in the Monster High universe, which is hilarious. But a bunch of the girls go to stay at a Scare B&B, only to find out that house is haunted, and there is which is what they wanted, but unfortunately not in the way that they expected, because it's actually haunted by a Titan who has a mysterious gateway trying to get out so that she can take over all monsters. And so Draculaura and Laguna are trying to deal with that, while Cleo and Claudine are trying to deal with the actual physical embodiment of the house, who is very angry at the way she's been treating. Meanwhile, Frankie has become like our Ash from Evil Dead character and is going after all of the monsters in the only craziest ways that she can think of, and she's been dealing with that through puns and fun all the way through. We're going to find out probably in the next issue if the girls can stop, I guess we are because it's only 5 issues long, if the girls can stop this terrible evil entity from releasing and save the day before it's too late. Seriously, if you love Monster High, you should read it, and if you just love fun books with great puns, you should also read it. Return to Skull Island, issue 4 from Titan Comics. This has been a really fun King Kong-based story. This is about a family that crash lands onto Skull Island, and unfortunately the son and the dad get stuck on the island, and when they're there, something happens and Kong gets sick, and all of these monsters have started to kind of take over the island, and bad things have been happening. They've teamed up with a local tribe of also young kids who are the only ones that seem to care that you keep Kong safe. Over the last couple of issues, the family has returned. The daughter and the unconnected really mom have come back, and they're determined to save everybody from the island. But we learned that our young girl doesn't necessarily want to leave, but the only way they can save the island is if they can save Kong and get him back into fighting mode. And meanwhile, they might have brought in some mercenaries with them on accident on the boat, and now the island might not be safe in a whole new way. We're going to figure that out, because while this is the end of this arc, it is definitely not the end of this story, and we're going to see more soon. Catacomb of Torment, issue 4 from EC Horror and Oni Press, who has brought back the EC line. This has been a fun anthology of stories that's kind of spun out of some of the other ones we had. And we get 3 stories in here. The first one is all about a town that has become really racially segregated, as if it's back in the 60s, but this is actually taking place in the now. And there's a woman that they asked to sew a flag for them, and I don't want to spoil any. They ask her to sew a flag, and she's like, I can absolutely do that, but she tells us, the readers, that she's going to put a little more into it than just the cloth and the threads that they want. And I'm not going to tell you what they need the flag for or what happens, because you've got to read that one. It's so good. And then we've got a story about a woman who was raised in an abusive home and found herself in an abusive marriage, and just really doesn't like to see that for women at all. And so she started gardening as a way to kind of deal with her own situation that she was in and calm her down. And now she uses flowers to kind of help women feel better and kind of use it as a way to talk to them about the situations they're going through. And how she gardens and how she tends her garden is, of course, our EC horror twist to all of this, and you're definitely not going to want to miss that story either. Such a good one. And then, of course, we have another one that is it's actually very much kind of similar to the story of Mousetrap by Agatha Christie. And we get to see this murder mystery unfold and who's responsible and how they're all, they're all trapped in this hotel, this Airbnb essentially during a snowstorm, and nobody can get out of the inn, and murders are happening, and who's responsible for the murder and how that works out, but with a little horror twist on it. So just another fun, EC adventure for you guys as we get new ones each week with these fun EC anthologies. Don't forget your briefcase, issue 4 from Mad Cave. This is another one of those stories that just keeps opening up. It kind of just started as like a hilarious adventure in the beginning, and now it's there's so much more to it. But this is this story of a young kid who his mom is a Russian spy, and he is very nervous and scared, and he carries all of his stuff in a briefcase as a way for just comfort. And one day when he is visiting his mom at work, some very bad things go down, and he ends up in a scuffle, and he loses his briefcase and accidentally picks up the opposite briefcase of the one that was his, which gives him all of the codes to all of the important information for the American government, which is, again, a major problem since his mom is a spy. And so he has no idea that that's the case at all. And now the woman who is supposed to be responsible for all of those codes has been trying to get to him. The Russian spies have been trying to get to him. And he is just a young boy who really doesn't understand why all these adults are making his life difficult. So much more is going on and happening as the story continues to grow deeper and deeper. But if you haven't started it yet, you definitely should, because it is a fun adventure all the way through. Ghost Pepper, issue 4 from Image Comics and the Skybound universe. This story is all about a young girl who is... She owns her own, food truck, essentially, in this post-apocalyptic world, and everybody hates her because she always has the best food and she has the best lines. And while she's dealing with all of that, she ends up taking in this guy who seems to be very mysterious, and nobody knows where he comes from. We know that because we get to see all of the other side of the stuff, that he's this great warrior who... may have been the very reason that the world still exists after all of this stuff went down in the apocalypse. And he also may be the very person that the ruling party is trying to find, who everybody thought was dead and now is suddenly back again. They have teamed up in an unlikely friendship, and that continues to grow in this issue as she finds herself facing off against a person who is one of those restaurateurs who hates her, who has tried to take out her food truck, and she kind of has to deal with it herself a little bit in this, and she kind of builds her friendship with her tag along a little bit more through that case. This has been a very big fan favorite here in the store, so if you haven't checked it out yet, you absolutely should. I'm going to take another drink of this wine because we're almost halfway through. Oh, wow. Now the honey's moved to the back and the spice has moved to the front.
That's real good.
Yeah. What's it called again? Cuatro Rayas?
Try it a little back towards the center.
Cuatro Rayas.
Yeah, keep going. Keep good. You're facing that way.
Well, it was too far the other way when you said turn it back towards the center, so I was trying to figure out what center. Yeah. Very good. Again, the honey, the little bits of honey in it, really definitely add to the texture and the flavor. Really good. We're going to keep drinking that until the bottle's gone, but, we're going to drink it throughout the show, too. We're going to keep going with comics, though, because there's still more. We're at Godzilla issue 3 from IDW. There's a lot coming out from Godzilla in the IDW Godzilla world, because they have launched the new era of Godzilla, the Keisei era. And this is our Godzilla proper title. And in this, we are seeing... we're seeing a lot happen, honestly. There's so much going on with Godzilla in this, and the big thing is that we do have a guy in here who seems to have the ability to channel that same energy, that like atomic blast kind of energy that Godzilla has. And he's on this new Godzilla team, and we're actually following along as this Godzilla team is trying to deal with the fact that Godzilla is in these epic battles right now, and there's something going on. And one of the scientists on the team feels like Godzilla is able to travel through underground passages that aren't in the water, and that basically Anguilus has created these passages, and so she's like convinced that happens, and nobody believes her until Godzilla shows up in Atlanta, and everybody's like, how did Godzilla get to Atlanta? And nobody could see them, and it's like, well, because he came through this underground passage. And so this team of people are having to try to figure out what's going on with Godzilla, trying to figure out, like, is Godzilla the good guys, are the bad guys? Again, we've got Jet Jaguar. We're really trying to bring Jet Jaguar back at IDW right now. Like, they're pushing him into all the books, which is kind of cool to see. But we're just opening up what this universe is going to be and what it's going to look like with these new powered people and this new kind of Godzilla and a new color of Godzilla blast. This is the first time Godzilla's had green radiation blast, and so it's really cool to see that atomic blast change. We've got issue 3 of Ancestral Recall from Ahoy Comics. I absolutely love this book. It's such a cool concept. And in this story, if you haven't read it yet, this is all about an old man whose wife goes missing one day, and he is trying to figure out how to find her because he really just doesn't know how to live his life without her. She's always been his, the person taking care of him, and also just the love of his life. And as he tries to do that, he kind of himself, like, is very not able to do a lot of things. He's lost a lot of his memory, and so he has to call on some power, and he calls on, as the creator explains it, the literal power of Black history to help him out. And so it's really cool because as he's having to face different things, you get to actually hear the story of the Black history moment that teaches him that. And so he gets to see, in this issue, he needs to ride a horse, and so he learns the power of horseback riding, like, comes to him from the first Black movie cowboy that did all the movies, like, at the same time as John Wayne and everything, that didn't get the credit. He has to ride a bike at one point, and he rides with the ghost, the spirit of a famous bike cyclist who was a Black woman who was a cycling pioneer. And so he just kind of gets these different powers from these different people. Meanwhile, he's working with this young girl, and we get to see her story in both now and in the future. And in the future, she seems to be more tied up with whatever is coming from these people who are stealing people and are kidnapping people. And so we're kind of seeing a little bit of, like, what are they doing with the people they're kidnapping, but we don't really know how it all connects from, like, the now to the then yet. And so it's a very fascinating story. Seriously, everybody should check it out. As always, Ahoy just crushes it with the stories they select. We've got Heatseeker Exposed from Titan Comics and Hard Case. This is part of the Gun Honey, like, Heatseeker world. And this is all about, we're following along as our main character is dealing with the fact that somebody is trying to expose all of the work that she's done as a spy, and trying to kind of show all of her clients, like, it's going to expose all of her clients. And so she decides to fake her own death, or maybe just, let people see her die with these special skills that she has. And while she's like, that should solve the problem and they won't expose it, well, here we are on issue 3, and in fact, that didn't stop anything. All it did was make people think she was dead for 2 seconds. Now they're still going after her clients, and so she has to figure out how she is going to save her clients before it's too late. She's like, even though they're not bad, they're not necessarily good people, their secrets are not supposed to be exposed, and if their secrets are exposed, I kind of lose my job. Great spy thriller that is definitely made for adults because there is a lot of adult content in these stories, but always a fun adventure in and of itself. Speaking of things that are sometimes a little adult, we have Hot Valley Days and Cocaine Nights. This is part 3 of 3 from the story of Keen Spot, and this is actually based on a true story of a woman who was one of the biggest drug dealers, and she's been telling us, we've been seeing this story from her point of view, and in the last issue, she kind of said, like, this is the moment that I go to die. And so we come into this issue, and she's like, okay, let me back up a little bit. And she tells us a little bit more about how she got into not only selling drugs, but how she went from just like a runaway who sold drugs on the street in her neighborhood to selling them across the entire country of America, and how she just builds this massive empire. And so we get to see that structure and how it all comes together, as we also see it in this issue all fall apart, because in this issue they actually get discovered and raided, and so she's got to deal with that falling part of the empire as the whole story is about. And again, it's such a true story that like parts of it are redacted, like they don't name the companies in it, but it's like actually crossed out. We get to see all the people who are part of it and all the backstabbing and everything that went into it once people start to get found out. Really fascinating story, and definitely perfectly made to turn into a movie if it hasn't been done as a movie before. But this is that wrap up, and there's lots of twists and turns in that story as well. Tex Arcanum issue 3 from Dark Horse. This is a really cool story about a guy who is essentially I guess a detective for magic people. And kind of what he does is he deals with paranormal issues. So he comes out, and if there's like a ghost attacking your area or things like that, he's the one that you call to do it. And he's been called in to this place where two people have been fighting, like two families have been warring over family lines and things for hundreds of years. And now they've started to release like these demons and witchcraft problems onto the area, and it's causing other people to die. And so he's been called in by the local sheriff to fix that. And in this issue, there's a wedding for one of the people, and the other family sneaks this relic on that ends up actually releasing the spirit of a dragon, which is a dragon enough to kill people. And so he's actually having to figure out how to stop this dragon from attacking people while also getting the information he needs, and also kind of finally starting to take some steps towards stopping these people from doing what they're doing. It's a very dense story that actually has a lot going into it, and I'm not gonna lie, on the very first issue I was like, I don't really know if like where this is going and if it's going to be something that like picks up and gets interesting in the way that I wanted to, but I actually really do like it. I love all the lore that they're building into it. Honestly, I'm not going to lie, my first hesitations was because they Texas was weird in their story, and it's supposed to be Texarkana, and I just, but it's been really cool to see how they developed it, and the character gets more and more interesting as the story goes on. Speaking of that Godzilla universe getting bigger, we've got Godzilla Escape the Zed Zone, issue 3, also from IDW. And in this story, we see a guy who lives in the Dead Zone, which is the Pacific Northwest, which has been destroyed by a Godzilla attack. And as far as we're told, on the outside of that area doesn't have any people living in it anymore, except for the fact that that's not true. There are actually people living in it. One is this man who is like half kaiju, half person, and can't really control when he becomes more and more kaiju. He kind of grows a little bit bigger. And he stumbles upon these kids who are being held hostage by the cult of Godzilla, that are people who believe that, Godzilla is God. And these kids seem to have some special magical powers in and of themselves. And this issue is kind of fun because the kids actually start doing that kid thing of questioning him and trying to figure out if he's actually somebody who can do anything to help them. And he's kind of like, I don't know why I feel it necessary to help these children when they're kind of obnoxious, and yet he can't find himself breaking away from it. And he starts to tell them a little bit of the backstory, and because they are kids, they're like, boring. And so you do get a little bit of it in bits and pieces in this, but we also do see a little bit more about these kids, and there is definitely something big brewing for all three of them as the story grows. We've got Tama, issue 3 from Panic. This is really soft. I love those crushed velvet feeling books. But this is the story of a kid whose mom works for the government and works for a legal firm, and she is researching something that is from an old corporation that shut down, which basically created these like virtual pets like Tamagotchis. And her son, who is very lonely and sad, ends up finding one of these Tamagotchis and taking it in and actually naming it Tama. And this virtual pet seems to actually have the ability to impact things in the real world. And every time the pet gets sad, it kind of lashes out at the world. And for our young kid, it works out really well for him in the sense that the things that make him sad, or the things that make Thomas sad, is when he's sad or when somebody hurts the kid. And so at first it seems a little innocent, where Tama kind of just picks on the bullies, but now people are starting to end up dead and bad things are happening, and the kids are starting to investigate what exactly went down in this situation, and what they find the old files of what happened, and they realize that Tama may be the leader of the most evil of the virtual pets. And this issue kind of unfolds with them like doing all of that research and dealing with some very big moments from Tama. And so if you're looking for something, a little fun and crazy, that's definitely the one. Fortress, issue 3 from Strangers. This is, I believe, where we ended when the original version of Fortress came out, and they never got to put out all of the issues. And so now we're going to get to see this story continue to unfold. But this is about a post-apocalyptic world, and basically there is one leader who kind of caused all the post-apocalyptic, like quasi-apocalyptic problems, and their mech that they did it with. And there is one person who can save us, which is this kid called Caleb. And Caleb was found at the beginning of issue 1 by a woman who is like, I have to nurse you back to health and I have to get you back in this fight. But Caleb has lost his arms and his ability to control the power that he has. And so she's trying to help him get new arms and get readjusted. In this issue, we actually finally see some other characters, which includes other bad guys and other good guys. We learn about some bounty hunters who are hired to find Caleb. We learn about the people who are sending those hunters and who work for the bad guys. But we also get to see that there's more people that are a part of this order that believes in Caleb. And so I'm so excited to finally get to see the rest of this story as we approach issue 4 finally coming out. So if you haven't read it yet, please, you should definitely grab it. The art is really cool. The story is building and growing every issue. And speaking of really cool art, we have Monster Fan Club. This is issue 3. I don't even know who puts this out. Floating World does. That makes sense. And it's just a really cool look at Shaky Kane making some crazy monster art. And actually, like, the first half of the book is just these, like, crazy, what are those, like, pictures where the, like, hidden pictures used to be in them? It's what these feel like.
Magic eyes.
Yeah, the magic eyes. This first half of the book kind of feels like a bunch of monster-themed magic eyes. And then you get into the actual story, which is about Santa Claus. And how he might also be kind of a monster, and some of the things that he goes through. And this story goes throughout the whole book on and off. Like, you get to see this, like, battle of these monsters and Santa making some terrible decisions. But you also get some other stories in here. I thought that you get this pinup poster. It's a strange, crazy book. But you do get some other stories, and one of which is also, like, a story that Shaky does about, like, how comics kind of saved, I don't want to see, I guess that's it, how comics, specifically monster comics, were kind of what saved him from all the stuff going on in his own life, and how he was like, I really just want, I needed something to, like, embody, like, goodness in my life when I was dealing with stuff, and I fell in love with Dracula and the Wolfman and things like that. And so you get to see why those characters became so important. And then again, the stories just kind of go back and forth between those stories until they kind of merge into one thing. crazy art, crazy storytelling. Definitely for people who love off the wall things, like where you're just like, I don't even know what just happened, but I like it. That's for you. Bullet Adventures, issue 2 from Altruist Comics. This is a part of a world. We just had the first issue last month, and it was all about a guy who was known as the Bullet, who was a speedster, and in the future, he was like an adult, like an old man, and his best friend came to him and was like, oh, you need to go back in time to the past. Now we're in the present, and we are following a young girl who is actually his granddaughter, and she has the same powers that he does. She has that speedster power, and she's at that point where she's having to figure out how to balance having a boyfriend and having friends. Her mom knows she has the power. Her grandma knows she has the power. And grandma's kind of supportive, even though it's what like cost her husband, but mom is definitely not. And she hasn't told any of her friends, and she feels like she's losing everybody because of it, and she doesn't know what to do. When she's finally going to actually like give some time to her friends and her boyfriend, a new villain pops up on the scene who actually bases himself off the very first person that her grandfather fought. And he also has that same ice power, and so she has to go and fight him. And the fight doesn't necessarily go the way either of them expects it to, and so it's kind of an interesting way to do a first fight for a villain and a hero meeting. But I really, really like her as a character, and we do get to see a little bit of how this is going to connect to that first issue, but I'm so excited to see more from her. She's actually, like, out of the indie, like, superhero characters, she's definitely one that I, like, immediately was like, I love her, and I want her to have all of the stories. Event Horizon Dark Descent issue 2 from IDW. This follows the events of the Event Horizon movie. And so we saw kind of them enter into that weird space, and all of the demon kind of stuff happen at the beginning of issue 1. This takes it a step further, and we get really crazy. And so we're starting to see them realize, like, oh, something may be happening here. And we're following along in this issue with one of the characters who's like, I've always been just like the guy that fixed it, and never the person who, like, if something was going on, I just ran away. Like, I either ran away or I fixed it. And if I couldn't fix stuff, I just walked away. And now he's there, and he's supposed to be the guy on the ship that's meant to fix things, and he realizes there's nothing he can do to fix this. And so he's like, I don't want anything to do with this, and I want out. And meanwhile, things are coming out, but they're more like demons, and it's getting dark, and people are dying, and it goes so fast. So you definitely, like, I don't want to spoil too much because this book moves fast, but if you are a fan of the movie, you definitely need to pick this book up. Masterminds issue 2 from Dark Horse. I was really excited that issue 2 was finally out because I love this concept, and I love the way Zach tells crazy stories. Zach Kaplan always comes up with something really good, and this one is so much fun already. This is about a guy who works in video game development, and he ends up getting an invitation to this program called Masterminds, and he has to solve these series of puzzles. And at the end of the first one, he's left in a room with a bunch of dead bodies that are presumably all the people he was working on this video game with. And so now he is having to figure out how to get through that room, because apparently it is all a part of the game that he must play. And it leads us on to a big adventure, and he ends up having to do the next couple of tasks. One of them includes having to steal the phone of the person who owns the video game company, because there's something that is on their phone that they need to do. And so he and another person must go through this, and this is where he first learns that there is other people who also have made it this far in the round, and so he's not the only one in the competition, but only one of them can succeed, and more challenges and stuff come before them. Really cool, really fun. It's one of those that, like, keeps you on your edge of your seat wondering what the next big thing's going to be. Stitch is back in issue 2 of this Dynamite comic. Another one of those where you can just read one and done. You don't have to move, follow along with the whole story. And in this one, Jumba decides he's going to make yet another adventure that will get him back into the evil evil scientist group, evil geniuses group, and he makes a thing that can switch things, and he means it so that you could switch like food and different things like that. But of course Stitch gets a hold of it and starts switching people in their bodies, and a whole big thing erupts where everybody's body is constantly being switched because Stitch can't stop playing with the machine, and they must figure out how to actually save the day and get everybody back in their bodies. And it just, the more they try, the worse it gets, and hijinks ensue that are adorable and fun and wonderful. And if you are a fan of Lilo and Stitch, this kind of feels more like the cartoon TV show where it was just more of like Stitch's adventures than a Lilo and Stitch thing, but it's definitely fun for everyone. Black Diamond issue 2 from Panic, and this is all of the covers came in foil, so you get a foil cover for no change in price. But this is the story of it's about a man and his son. They go out to a ski lodge. They are having a wonderful vacation of sorts. Not really. They don't really have the best relationship. And suddenly the son goes missing. And when the son goes missing, the dad is basically told, you can have your son back, but you basically have to give us a different kid to replace your son because we need a kid. And if you go to the police, if you tell anybody, if all those normal things, like, we'll kill your kid. And also you have a limited amount of time because your kid may or may not still be out in the snowy wilderness. The ex-wife shows up where they were supposed to be meeting on this trip, and now he's kind of informed her of what's going on, and she's the only person that can be in this situation with him. And so they are trying to, in this issue, feel out all of the classes that the kids go to, because there's all the ski classes for the different levels of kids, and they're like, this is the best way for us to find a kid to steal, except obviously this isn't what they do, so they're kind of terribly bad at it, and they have to make some really terrible decisions in order to figure out how they're going to get into this situation and how they're going to get out of the situation. And things just get a little bit darker and more literally the catchphrase is "get nervous" for Panic on the back of the book, and it's that's totally true. You just get more and more nervous for them and how bad they are at this and how much time they're running out of as the story unfolds. But there's some possible supernatural sinister-y things going on, maybe, or is it all just people being really dark and sinister? We don't know yet. We're gonna figure it out. Adventures of Lumen Inn, issue 2 from Dark Horse. This is a fun adventure, very similar to something like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, where we had a young girl who was raised in a school grounds. She didn't, a boarding school. She knew she was special, but she didn't know why. And at the end of the first issue, we find out that she is actually the grandchild of Captain Nemo. And she thought, her dad had left her behind. Now in this issue, she learns that, yes, her dad did leave her behind, but he was doing it because he had kind of taken over being Nemo, but he wanted to do it in a positive way and was doing the best to be a philanthropist pirate, which is a thing that nobody knew existed, and was kind of on his own adventures. And now Nemo had frozen himself so that he could decide who he wanted to be and how he was going to do it. And now he's kind of thawed out and come back to help his granddaughter because somebody dark and dangerous is after them, and he doesn't know who it is and she doesn't know who it is. And so she decides that she should get to go on this adventure with him to figure it out, because if her dad is in trouble or if somebody has hurt her dad, she wants to go and be a part of this. And a big giant adventure ensues afterwards. And this is such a great book. This is so much fun. It really does feel like a classic adventure story. You do feel like you're on the Nautilus and going on an adventure with Nemo, but you also are kind of in that, you have that young childlike wonder to go with it. So much fun. If you didn't pick it up yet, we're only 2 issues in. I highly recommend. Shredder is back. Issue 2 from IDW. We have not seen Shredder in a hot minute in the Ninja Turtles world, and he is back, and he's not very happy. He's come back from Dimension X only to find out that everything has changed in his world. He is actually being held by the police, essentially, and they are asking him to investigate a situation with some of the mysterious people who like some of the mysterious organizations that have taken over. As we know, if you're reading the Bradenton Trail stories, the foot soldiers have been working for the district attorney, and that's kind of blowing up in everybody's face right now. Karai is in her own magical coma world situation, doing some dark stuff with some demon type people, and so Shredder is back, and you know, people are like, hey, Shredder, you're not really that scary, because if you were, you wouldn't have been taken out and you would have been able to run the Foot Clan. And Shredder is out to prove to everybody that there is a reason why he is called the Shredder, and he is not going to stand for any, you know, disrespect in his own town. And so a fun adventure to just have Shredder on his own for a minute. Racer X, issue 2 from Mad Cave and our Speed Racer universe. This is a companion to the Speed Racer story. You don't really have to read both, but it definitely makes the stories make more sense for both sides if you do. But this follows Racer X, who is a character kind of known as more of, like, I believe, more bad guy-esque in the cartoon. And like the antithesis essentially to Speed Racer. But in this, we've learned the true identity of Racer X has actually put him on a path where he actually wants to see Speed Racer succeed. And so this book following him actually shows all the kind of behind the scenes work he's doing to kind of make Speed have a better chance of winning. You know, if you're reading the Speed Racer story, Speed's dad ended up in the hospital, and so Speed Racer has joined the racing circuit in an attempt to win the money to help save his dad, but he doesn't actually have the money to get into these races. And so Racer X has been using his, you know, nefariously gained money to kind of fund Speed, but he is doing it in a way where Speed doesn't feel like he's just being given charity handouts. And so we're getting to see some really cool action scenes, but most importantly, this being Mark Russell, we're actually seeing a really great story develop for a character that you may not have had a backstory for before. So, Artificial issue 2 from Image Comics. This is Maria Levitt's newest one, which I love. Is called 9.5 Weeks Meets Terminator. What a great way to do this. This is all about a woman, and we'll see if I can show you any of this book. This is all about a woman who really just wants to find a love for herself, and she works in like the fashion industry and style, and she just needs something, so she ends up booking an android boyfriend for herself, and that could go really well, and it could go really, really wrong. And in this issue, we start to see the beginnings of that going really wrong, because when she takes a little mini vacation with him, she decides she wants to play with the role-playing function on the app that controls him. And when she does that, she actually finds herself in danger, because like in a little bit of danger, because she can't undo it. And so he gets a little possessive immediately, because he's in this like romantic-y, like romance novel, like you know, love triangle kind of situation. And so she's like, ooh, you're a little aggressive in your obsession, but I love it and it's hot. And then it's like, oh, now she's actually in a place where she is actually needing him to step out of that, and there is no way to shut it off, and that is going to lead to some danger for her and some other characters as it goes on. Very adult book, in case you didn't catch that by the fact that I didn't show you anything inside of it, but very well done. Honestly, one of my favorite Maria Levitt books. Blue Falcon and Dynamite, issue 2 from Dynamite. This is the story of the Blue Falcon, who is a superhero with his sidekick, Dynamite. And in the last issue, some bad things happen for Dynamite, and we are dealing with the fallout of that in a very John Wick kind of way. Blue Falcon has gone and lost it a little bit because of the hurt that was put on Dynamite, and so he is going after all of the villains in the town right now, trying to figure out who is responsible for the damage that was done to his dog, and he is going through the different levels of the gang violence in the area and all the different crews, trying to figure out who's responsible for the damage that happened. And it's actually kind of funny, because at one point he does go to a criminal bar, and he tells them all that, like, something that like a man, you know, attacked his dog. One of the criminals attacked his dog, and they're all like, dude, that's messed up. Have some drinks on us. And it's like, we don't know how to tell you where to find the guy, but like, we even think that's wrong. And so you get kind of a little funny scene in there, but it is currently a vengeance story. We'll see where that plays out. Cowboys of Moo Mesa issue 2 from Oni Press in our Nacelle universe. In this, our main cowboy, Sheriff Montana, I guess, has gone to help his former mentor. She has been kidnapped from the town that she works in, and he has gone to try to save her. And when he gets there, there is another sheriff deputy already there, and he is a big giant jerk. A bullheaded man, if you would, who really wants to have the town controlled for himself. And so the rule that they put in place is whoever stops the dark horse from attacking all of the people and saves all the sheriff and everybody else that's been kidnapped, that they will get to become the new leader of town. And so our main guy goes out on an adventure. He gets a little in danger and trouble because nobody wants to help him. He's all on his own. But a new adventure awaits for him as he makes some friends along the way. And we get to see some of the other cowboys of Moo Mesa finally make their appearance in this issue and build some of those friendships. And while we get to see that moment where it's like, oh, yay, maybe we're actually on the process to solving some things, we're only on issue 2. So it's like, hey, we did some good stuff, but also we've got a long way to go. But this is just the beginning of this world, and it's a lot of fun. And this has been another one of those that's super popular in the store. Good as Dead, issue 2 from Image Comics and Skybound. This is about a city that's always been pretty cut off from the world. They've, up until this point, only had one bridge that led in and out of the town, and this is the day that they're supposed to be launching a new bridge. And on that day, the bridge gets destroyed when it's like, you know, ribbon cutting happens. Meanwhile, also, a bunch of people in town have been poisoned by some like crazy virus that's now moving through, and so our sheriff kind of has found himself on a extreme time frame because he has been struck with the virus and only has a few days to live. And so he's like determined to figure out who destroyed this bridge. And of course his personal biases are completely and totally coming into play here because he hates the richest family in the town, who has always been at war with his own family, and they own the other bridge. And so he's convinced that it's definitely them that is in charge of it. So he is going after them, trying to figure out how to get the young son, who he thinks is the only one who will actually like fess up to the information and will give him what he needs to know. He hires his sister, who is a little bit in her own world and a former mercenary, and is like, hey, let's go after these people. And things get dark and crazy. One of the things I do like about it, though, is that they put the lettering behind the rain, which is kind of cool. A unique way to do it. And so it's like, oh, it's raining all through the story, which is kind of awesome. But he has some big revelations in this issue and a lot of things that go down. And we still are no closer to figuring out what actually happened. But we are a lot closer to our sheriff not making it out. And so good detective, good adventure, good like dark story in that one. All right. Books that are launching this week, or in the last 2 weeks, we've got Deluge, #1 from Ignition Press, which actually came out last week. This is a new one from our friend Cullen Bunn. And this is actually a really cool concept. It's all about a bunch of women who are out of prison, and we see the day that this new therapist arrives to this prison, and she's kind of making those little connections as she goes through, and we get to see a little bit about the prisoners. But we also learn that there is a lot of water on the rise. Like, we see at first just some little drips because it's raining outside, and we get to see that, and then suddenly like the whole place is like flooding through, and basically the levees have broken, a big rainstorm is coming, and now this prison is quickly falling underwater. But it's too late to get the prisoners out in an easy fashion, and so they're trying to figure out what they're gonna do to do just that. And some stuff happens. I don't even want to tell you necessarily what that stuff is, but it's definitely opening up this story to the fact that something wicked this way comes as these poor women are trying to figure out how to get out. But at the same time, like, who's actually a killer and who's like in prison just for like wrongdoings and who's not even like wrong to be in prison. And so you've got like that story of like some of these people are murderers and are very ready to kill again, and there's a darkness definitely around. Marian Heretic, issue 1 from Boom Studios. I actually read the sampler for this when it came out, and so I'm really excited to finally get the other half of the story, because it's another really cool concept. This is all about a woman who is a nun, and her sisters in their convent have always prayed to Mary, the Mother of God. And because of that, the church has kind of deemed them as heretics, because they took it, you were only supposed to pray to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and not to the mother. And she refused to acknowledge that was true. She was like, no, you should definitely worship her as well. And so now she had to make a deal with the church in order to protect her convent and people, that she would use the fact that she was a woman to connect with witches, and so that she could destroy the witches that are taking over the community. And so the church sends her out to battle against all of these witches and destroy them. And she is like, I kind of feel wrong about it. And she has that conversation in this one of like, what's the difference between these witches who celebrate the goddesses that they believe in and the nuns who worship Mary? And so this whole thing becomes like, you're more of a heretic than you thought you were. Cool, action-packed. Like, I thought it was going to be more warrior nun, but it's definitely more actually like going to be build on that like religious like battle and things, and that internal struggle between the two. And that Jenny Frizen cover is cool.
That's Teenie Howard.
It is Teenie Howard, which is why it's so great. Yeah, Teenie Howard. If you don't know, if you haven't read, if you were a fan of X-Men during the Krakoa age, you definitely read some Teenie Howard, and you should definitely check this out, because it's gonna have a lot of that same action-packed feel to it. And Teenie did Harley for a while too, and so there's a lot of, and Catwoman, I think. Didn't she do Catwoman? They do Catwoman for a minute there too. There's a lot. So it's got a little bit of that superhero feel mixed into it with that strong indie push. We've got Red Book issue 1 coming from Dark Horse and Tiny Onion. This is the Russian equivalent of Blue Book, which was all about all of the American alien stories. This is going to take us through the stories of Russia. And so it kind of starts back in the Soviet Union in the very long time ago, and the first kind of experience where an alien spacecraft was allegedly supposed to have crashed into that like Arctic tundra. And it talks about the first little bit that we get is about these campers who went camping out there in the woods, and never, like, there was 10 of them and they didn't make it back, and they were all in like these weird positions and kind of destroyed from the inside out, and all of the crazy stuff that happened to them. And then we get to kind of see all of the other like alien invasion kind of moments, and the big mysteries and all the files that the Russians kind of hid from that, and how it also played in during the Cold War. And this is just the start of it. The Blue Book series was 2 volumes, and each volume was 5 or 6 issues. And so I imagine we're going to see some of that as well, and kind of give us a little bit more of the fact that aliens didn't just land here in America, and there are stories of aliens that have been hidden and covered up by governments for all around the world. And so maybe there's more to alien stories than we thought. And just like all the other, the Blue Book issues, we do also get a backup story in this one that just kind of talks about some weird stuff that occurred around the world, and some of those folklores that maybe are also true. If all the alien stories are true, maybe some of these folklore stories all also have a bit of truth to them. We've got Mary Sue issue 1 from Boom and the Boombox line, which is their teen imprint. And this is, I'm very excited about the art on this because it's Lisa Sturl, and she's one of my favorite. She did the Modern Witch Tarot deck, and so I love anytime she does a book. But this is all about a a young girl who feels like she doesn't belong in the world. Her mom is very, very religious and thinks that, like, if you're not at church, then you're not doing life right. And she's kind of trying to force her daughter into that same thing. Like, she's like, well, maybe you need to go to church more to have more friends, and you should go to, like, church lock-ins. And what happened to the friends you used to have? And this girl's like, dude, I don't have any friends. All of my friends live in my computer. And they live there because she is a fan fiction writer. And so she has become, like, the main fan fiction writer for a show called Riverview, which is really kind of more Vampire Diaries meets Twilight kind of situation, meets Sherlock, meets Riverdale. It's all of the things that have had massive fandoms in the last few years kind of rolled into one. And she writes this epic fan fiction, and her mom decides that she's grounded one night and sends her to her room and won't let her take her computer. And so she hand writes the next chapter of her fan fiction because she wants to get up for her friends. And then the next day at school, the bullies kind of, target her again, and she loses everything, and she's worried that, they're going to make fun of her for it, which they do. And it's when she's having this bully moment, the epic thing that all fan fiction people wish could happen in real life kind of happens for her. And she has this change of life entirely, and we're gonna see where that goes for her as it unfolds, and I'm definitely excited to see exactly where that's gonna be. I will say, if you don't understand fan fiction and like things, you are going to be lost on a lot of that story. And I'm saying that because Matt was somebody who was like, I don't know fan fiction, and was like, I don't know some of these terms. They do use it. There is like a little bit in the back that kind of tells you a little bit about it. So it can kind of help you. And there is some stuff about there is interviews with the creators who are like, oh, this is when I did fan fiction and stuff. But you definitely, it's definitely made for people who have fandom obsession to kind of find themselves in a book. And like, as somebody who was raised in an extremely like religious background and who was always into crazy fandoms, that got me in more trouble than didn't. I definitely get where the character's coming from.
It's an interesting point too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very specific.
Yes, and yet it's going to be great. The Disavowed from Devil's Due. This is issue 1. This is Josh Blaylock, who used to actually write G.I. Joe, kind of doing his own G.I. Joe. And so this is all about a young kid who never knew his dad and ends up finding out that his dad, like all his dad's stuff in a garage or in the closet, and he gets into it and he realizes his dad has like this secret gun that shoots lasers. And so then it kind of jumps to him telling us about his dad's life and what his dad did once he learned about it. And essentially it is just the entire story of G.I. Joe. And his dad was kind of Duke for the Joes. And so he, I think he even goes by that. And so he gets to have, his dad goes by Dane. And so, that's what they call him instead of Duke. And so he tells us all about his dad's experiences and all the stuff. And that his dad didn't make it out of, this last mission with essentially Snake Eyes. And so now he, has gone through the military and stuff and is trying to get to a point where he can, get to the same level that his dad was in so that maybe he can learn even more about what happened. And so if you are a fan of G.I. Joe, this is definitely a fun one for you because it does have a G.I. Joe, former creator, working on it, kind of giving you another indie version, a non-licensed version of it so they can go a little further in the same way that, the Power Rangers writers went on to make Radiant Black, and it was this kind of feels like Power Rangers, but you get to do your own thing with it. I think we're going to see a lot of G.I. Joe, but you get to do your own thing with it in this story. Death to Pachuco. This is issue 1 from Image Comics and Top Cow. This is during the, I believe it's the 1940s. But this is all about a man, let me make sure I get the time right, 1943, yeah, and so this is during a time when Mexican Americans were really being targeted for unnecessary reasons, and this is a murder has happened and they're trying to figure out who it is. And so instead of actually doing anything, they just use it as an excuse to round up a lot of the Mexican Americans and just kind of take them in and basically say, like, oh, you're all the problem. And so two sisters come to a man who is he's not a police officer, he's a private investigator, and they come to him and they're like, hey, our sister got arrested for this murder and she absolutely didn't have anything to do with it. We need you to get her out of jail. And she's like, and so he starts to do the investigation, and let me see if I can find when he actually goes to talk to her, because I was going to see, and so we get to see them kind of come in, and it's just so funny, though, because, like, he's like, oh, these people, like, I'm doing the investigation, and suddenly they're, like, constantly at his house, and they're constantly just in his space, and he's like, why are you here? But they're very nervous that if, there is something going on with this, they know that there's some grand people who are coming after them who are going to be involved in this more. And so he's trying to get all the information he needs. He's trying to figure out the people that are involved. The girl that actually didn't, like the sister who didn't do it but is in prison for it, is like, I don't want to risk my family. I'm not going to tell you anything. Like, everybody knows if I stitch on this that's going to be the case that happens. And so it's definitely a great setup. I think if you like crime stories, you're definitely going to want to check this one out. Henry Barajas worked on Green Hornet and a couple of the other recent, like, crime noir kind of stories, and so you're getting a lot of that like classic work built into this as well, which is really cool, and I can't wait to see where that story is going to go. Grubbs got his Halloween special out from Keen Spots. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. I'm just going to tell you, if you are looking for a fun kid and adult, like a good all ages Halloween comic, this is a great one. Grubbs is kind of very much like a Dennis the Menace character, and so this is all of his hijinks as he tries to figure out how to have the best Halloween, like make all of his pranks work and get all the candy that he wants. And so you just get a fun little quick anthology essentially of Grubbs trying to come up with all of the best ways to celebrate Halloween. Harley Quinn and Elvira, issue 1 from Dynamite. This one I've been waiting for. Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor working on Harley Quinn and Elvira at the same time. What a great thing. This is our amazing team of so much of Harley Quinn. So I feel like at this point nobody knows her better. And so it's so much fun to see them do this story. And basically it starts with Harley Quinn having these terrible dreams of being in front of everybody and, like, her naked, the going to school naked kind of dreams. But she is like, I don't know what's wrong. And they're like, oh, it must be something that you're stressed about. And she's like, you know what I'm stressed about? I'm stressed that I never got to go to the Halloween party last year. And I was really looking forward to having an awesome Halloween and it got ruined. And so I want to have that experience. And so she decides she's going to plan a Halloween party, even though at the time it's August. And the only way that it's going to be great is if she can convince Elvira to come to her Halloween party and celebrate with her. And so she ends up going to try to wrangle Elvira. Meanwhile, at the same time, Elvira has just found out that they are canceling her show, and she's upset about it because it means she's going to lose her awesome house and all of the lavish things that she has, and she doesn't want to lose all that. And so she's trying to take matters into her own hands, and the two team up indirectly to solve the problem and to open up a world of possibilities for the two of them to have the best Halloween ever. And honestly, if I could spend my Halloween with Harley Quinn and Elvira, I think it would be the best Halloween ever. High Strangeness, issue 1 from Oni Press. I was really looking forward to this one. This is the new Chris Condon book from Oni Press. So if you're reading things like News from the Fallout, Ultimate Wolverine, things like that, you're going to want to check this out. And this starts with a young girl who has these people show up at her house and they say they're scientists, and she's like, okay, like, and she just she's letting them in and they're talking to her about it. And it turns out, they might be some alien type creatures, and we find out all that because a man who is a journalist is told to go and do this story, and basically she had released a photo of a UFO saying she'd seen it, and they were like, that's definitely a fake photo of a UFO. But they're like, yes, but now the girl has gone missing, and was it the boyfriend that did it? Was it somebody else? And so as this guy goes to this town in Indiana to try to do the investigating, he learns that there's a lot of crazy, mysterious things that are going on in this world, and he is very, like, wraps up in it immediately. And aliens, adventure, he ends up writing the article about it, and he kind of takes a different angle, but it also kind of exposes him to it. But I do like that we get the actual article, so we can see what it is that he said, because we kind of just see the fallout of his article in the story, and so it's nice that we get to see it. I want to say, yeah, there's more to come. This is going to be really cool. I'm really excited about it, though, but this is this, yeah, I was hoping that it actually said it, but it doesn't. Anyway, this is from Spectrovision, which is, I believe, Elijah Wood's film studio, and so there's a lot that is definitely going to be coming from High Strangeness as that grows. Little Nightmares, Descent to Nowhere, issue 1 from Titan. This one has a really cool parallel story going on, because we are getting to see some of the, like, these kids who are in a dangerous situation, and we get to see all of that. But at the same time, we do get to see these two detectives who are talking, and the one detective is kind of like, she's on a bridge and she's going to jump from this bridge because she's talking about all the bad things that are happening in this world, and there's just, like, no way to stop them. And another detective shows up and is like, hey, like, I'm on your side, like, come back with me, let's talk about it. And so they kind of go through and they start talking about how they could be the only people that are the good guys and that do this. And meanwhile, we do get to see in between their story, we get a completely different art style that follows these kids who are, like, trapped in these cages and are trying to break free, and we never see any storytelling on that other than the art. And so it kind of just leads us through that, but we haven't seen necessarily how these two stories are going to connect. But there is definitely something coming from these detectives that is going to lead us down into this path of these nightmares that these kids are facing and how we're going to save them from this. We do see that our detectives end up finding themselves maybe having to go out on their own very quickly, and we're going to figure out why in issue 2. Temporal, issue 1 from Mad Cave. This is a new one from Stephanie Williams, and this is all about a woman and her husband. When they were dating, they were actually both thieves who used the power of, like, slowing down and speeding up time, traveling through time, as a way to steal the items that they were doing. And now they have this great little story, and then it fast forwards to 10 years later. They've gotten married, they have a kid who's celebrating its 10th birthday, and they're kind of like on the, you know, they're living their normal life, and she seems to have a little bit of the I don't know, kind of like the vibe of, like, I want to go back into that. I kind of miss the world the way we had it. I miss having that rush, that feeling. And on top of that, she wanted to get something for her son for Christmas, or his birthday, and she ended up only getting him a replica. And she's like, you know, if I could go back and go travel through time and do these thievery things, like, I could have gotten him what he actually wanted. And so behind everybody's back, she contacts a friend who used to be a part of the same crew, and she reaches out and kind of learns what's going on still in that thief world, and kind of seeing about maybe possibly getting back in the game, always just for one last job. But what does that look like? It's gonna be awesome. I'm really excited to see how that story unfolds. We've got Ziki issue 1 from SHP Comics and their kids line. This is all about a young boy who has a huge imagination, and he, as far as he knows, every time, like, he's supposed to be in bed, he's going on these wild adventures, and he's been actually fighting against this rat king in a parallel dimension, and nobody believes him. They all think it's just stuff that happens when he's sleeping, but he's thoroughly convinced that these are real stories, and every time he wakes up, he tells everybody about them, and they're like, okay, well, he's found himself in a place where he doesn't know what the right thing to do is, and he's asking his dad for some advice, and then he goes to take a nap so he can cross over into this other dimension before he does it. And when he does, on his way back, one of the evil rats escapes and comes through the dimensional portal too. And whether or not anybody else is going to experience that and is going to understand what's really happening is going to be Zicky's big adventure. Super Creepshow. This is a one-shot from the Creepshow world from Image and the Skybound imprint. And this is just a really funny way of kind of retelling some of our superhero stories in with the Creepshow twist. And so the first one is Funeral for a Fiend, which basically redoes the story of the death of Superman. If Superman had not come back in a good way. Like, what if all of the things that happened, what if the powers that be inside of Superman, what if it actually made him come back monstrous, and what would that look like, and how would that have impacted the world? We get to see that in the first story in here, which is a really cool one. And then in the second story, we actually do a story of the Gray Ghost Reborn, which is basically we're seeing a lot of those like 90s characters get brought back and revitalized, and this is like from the point of view of the 90s character. Like, what if he didn't want to get brought back and revitalized and watered like down essentially from the crazy off the wall 90s into like the modern stuff? Like, what if he was changed? Like, what if he didn't want that, but the corporate overlords that be made it happen? And that's kind of watching him deal with that. And then the last story is kind of a Hulk story where a guy really just wants to prove that he can create something that's great, and he wants to get the girlfriend back that he lost, and he decides the best way to do that is essentially to create a Hulk serum. But all of the destruction he caused kind of just makes everybody think maybe you weren't actually a good person with good intentions. We've got One Last Trick, issue 1 from Midnight Factory. This is Joseph Schmalke, who does 7 Years in Darkness, bringing us another story. He is writing this one only. He is not doing the art. But this is the story of a woman who is a sex worker in a futuristic world, and she is trying to figure out how to get out of that. And so she is told that she can have this one last experience, and if she doesn't, like, they'll let her out. But of course, that they never actually really mean that. And when she goes to this job, it is a highly dangerous job, and she's got her own ulterior motives for actually doing this one last job, and it kind of leads her on into this really dark spot. And so she's got to figure out how to get out of that. She's working with some people who are trying to take down this like evil corporation and the people in charge, and we get a very big futuristic like Blade Runner world kind of situation story kind of starting up here, and it's just going to lead us into what comes next. And this is really opens up that world very big for us, and gives us like a little bit of an insight into all the different rules of the world, as it also puts us on the adventure where they're coming after her before the story even starts, honestly. Tarot Bites issue 1 from Mark Russell and Mad Cave. This is going to be another kind of sci-fi horror anthology situation from Mark Russell. But this one shows us some robots who find an old recording of something that happened, and they kind of take it and are listening to it. And it is the story of a man who created a virtual reality product called Final Days, which is supposed to help us relive our best moments at the end of our lives. And so it shows him do the whole sales pitch and kind of talk about all the things he's going to do, and honestly how he's going to experiment on people, and how he's not going to hold back, and he's like, I'm just going to do all the experiments I want, and nobody's going to care because the people I'm experimenting on don't matter anyway in his mind. And so we get to see kind of how that works out for him. and the twists and turns of that. But since it is an anthology, it's kind of like, the whole story is in there, so I don't want to spoil it too much. But if you're liking Vanishing Point from Mark Russell, I think that this is another one of those that you're just going to want to jump in and add to your list immediately. Yuletide, issue 1 from Oni Press. This is bringing the horror back into the Yule season, as we're kicking it off with the horror side for Halloween, but leading us into the monsters that be for the holidays. And this follows a kid who lives in Christmas, Pennsylvania, who very much hates Christmas, hates that everything in his town is supposed to be all about the cheesy manufactured Christmas experience. His family's last name is even Holly. Like, he's like, this is the worst place. I hate it so much. And he's absolutely against it. And he ends up meeting another girl who also doesn't really care about Christmas. And she takes him to her uncle's house, and underneath it they have kind of a museum to all the things that are about Yule and where Christmas actually came from, the things that nobody wants to hear. And he gets to find out that there's this like magical box, and this box is kind of telling him, like, open it. He hears these voices telling him to expose it. And when he actually goes to try to do that for his live stream, he may open essentially the Pandora's box of unholy monsters related to the Yule season, and just kind of brings this darkness to this world. And there's so much that comes into this, and I'm so excited because all of my favorite Christmas horror stories are going to make a cameo in this book at some point or another, so I'm very excited for that. Zombie Love Halloween 2025 special. This is from a publisher of sorts. I still don't know. It just says it's published by Zombie Love Studios. Okay. Cool. So this is, but it's setting up, there's actually like every single story in here says to be continued. So I'm hoping that means that, we're going to see some more. But the first story is actually, Rodney Barnes and Simon Kodransky together, which makes me really excited. And, it's all about, a guy who is essentially like the sheriff and has this this connection to the demons, and the demons are trying to get him and bring him into hell essentially, and are like very Gunslinger Spawn almost-esque in that sense, because they're trying to bring him back into the afterlife, and they're like, we're going to take you down, and if you don't come with us, we're going to take your family, and you may not be in the afterlife, but your family is. And then the second story is all about oh my gosh. Okay, so the second story is also by Rodney Barnes, and it is, I believe, it takes place in Flint, Michigan, and the water is so contaminated that it basically causes a virus to break out that causes people to start trying to attack each other. And instead of fixing the water or doing anything to help the people of Michigan, they just decide to send the National Guard in to keep them trapped in that area and just let them all destroy themselves. And the people are like, we have to do something about it. And again, all of these are like to be continued stories, so I cannot wait for the book that has that in there. And then the last story is by R.J. Barnes, and I don't know if that is like a relative to Rodney, maybe his kid. But that is a story about LA in like this apocalyptic situation, and these two siblings who are kind of trying to run the place, and one of them is trying to essentially run it like he's become like this big mobster gangster guy, and his sister is like, that's not the way to do it. But there is definitely some mutant animals and some mutant things going on in there, and so that's like, hey, we need to get out of this city, but you're all kind of trapped in there. And so we're gonna see, again, all three of those stories say to be continued, and I can't wait because they are great launching points for some good stories. Hectoplasm issue 1. This is from Image Comics. This is the Hunt for Bigfoot. I like this because it kind of gives us a huge overview of Hectoplasm, who may or may not have existed before. It's like, if this is, he did.
There was another book series entirely.
There's another book series entirely.
Yeah,
and
Patrick is telling me about today.
Oh, awesome. It does recap all of that for you. It tells you everything that has ever happened with Hectoplasm, which is why I assume that there was a previous series. You do not have to have read it because they recap it so well. I feel like I've been reading Hectoplasm for years after this. But basically, Hector is another one of those people who kind of fight against the demons and stuff of the world. He can only fight against ghosts and creatures that are kind of dead is kind of the world he thrives in, and he uses ectoplasm to basically create weapons and things that he can use to fight it. And he goes to stop a ghost from attacking. Like, there's a ghost that's been killing college kids, and he goes to stop it. And the professor that brings him in stops by and is like, hey, like, I'll put you up in a hotel for the night, but let me go by my museum. And it turns out he owns a Bigfoot museum, but the professor doesn't believe in Bigfoot. He actually believes in all of the other kind of history and stuff around the area. But one of his assistants actually really, really does, and she's trying to get Hector to help her find Bigfoot. And Hector's like, that's not a thing. I don't believe in Sasquatches, and also, like, that's not my, like, there's people who hunt monsters. That's not me. And while Hector is still there and still trying to figure out how to get out of the town, more murders start happening, and the police decide that Hector is either the problem or the solution, and so he must stay in town and figure it out. And maybe it's Bigfoot, maybe it's not. We've got Craniacs, issue 1, and this is, oh my gosh, who put this out? Is this Titan? Yes, Titan. I'm very excited about this. This is a lot of fun. This is very Garbage Pail Kids, and it's supposed to be. It's from the same the same creative kind of people. And so anyway, in this we have two different worlds. We have the Futera world and the Retrovia. And this book is a flip book, so the first side is going to show you your retro world, and you get to see about the people who lead retro world and all the stuff that's happening there. And they're told that the other side of the planet is a planet that, like, attacked them in its future world, and that their world is terrible, and they're all monsters, and you don't want to connect with them. And then, of course, they run into them, and then we flip it over, and we see Futera, which is a futuristic world, which was told that the retro world crashed into their planet, and it's terrible, and everybody's monsters, and you don't want to do it. And of course, these two books meet with kids from both sides meeting each other for the first time, and we're going to see how that comes together. I am already sold. I love these characters. I love the garbage pail-ness of it. There is trading cards for it. And we do have the comics that come with the trading cards. So if you are somebody who likes to collect trading cards, it's a great way to do it, because there are going to be trading cards for all the different Craniacs on both sides of the fence. 30 Days of Night is back with Failing Sun, a new story in the 30 Days of Night universe. This is issue 1 from IDW. This is supposed to be, like, the time has all passed. I think they say it's been like 20, 30 years since everything happened in Barrow, Alaska. So if you don't know the 30 Days of Night story, the movie is out. You can watch the movie. It's perfect for Halloween. But in Alaska, there is a point where there are 30 days where the sun does not rise. And in 30 Days of Night, that leads to a massive vampire attack on the world, and pretty much everybody in the town dies. Now, like I said, it's been years later, and we are seeing people living in this town again, some of who remember it, most of which think it's all like made up mumbo jumbo that happened a long time ago. This story follows along as a teenage boy from LA has moved to live with his uncle. Won't tell anybody what's going on, and why he needs to get out of LA, but just says he needs to get away from everything that's going on. And so the uncle's trying to get him help, trying to get him to talk to therapists, trying to get him to just communicate with everybody. Things are going down. We're also seeing a cult of people who believe in the vampires, reawaken vampires in the area, because, well, what would the story be if they didn't? And so we are approaching, it is the last day before the 30 days of night begin, and bad things are coming. Is
it also Rodney Barnes?
It is also Rodney Barnes.
It is not Steve
It's
Niles.
not Steve Niles. Steve Niles consulted on the story. Rodney Barnes is writing it. It is. It's really good. It was funny because I was like, oh, it won't take me long to read it, because Steve Niles always, like, has really light storytelling, and then I was like, oh, it's Rodney Barnes, there's going to be way more story into it. And so there is, and it's already got some great character development. It already pulls you back into it, gives you so much of what happened in the old one through like people talking about it and dealing with their trauma from it. Lots of characters already in it. Cannot wait. And does that say what I think it says and I just totally didn't say it? Yeah, it's art by Press Shann. So that's going to be awesome and epic. I was wondering why I left it. So fantastic launch. And if we, the graphic novel, the original is hard to find. I don't know if IDW put it back in print now that this is coming back. But hopefully they do. Haunted Box issue 1. This is from Iron Ace Comics. This is an anthology of horror stories. I'm not going to go through all of it. I'm just going to show you that you have a bunch of different ones. And you kind of see, it's the artist stays the same, but the writer stays the same, but the artist changed. And so you're getting a lot of cool different stories for Halloween in here that kind of follow along, much like with like Silver Coin, where we kind of follow into different things that kind of deal with the Haunted Box. The first story is the Haunted Box. I don't think it like necessarily has to play in all of them, but you do get to see again just different horror stories in this oversized issue, and all different kinds of stories and different kinds of art. And I'm not gonna and it's not, I got that wrong, it's Iron Age, not Iron Ace Comics. Anyway, this is a cool magazine sized book with lots of different stories in it. I'm going to tell you about 3 picks of the week, and then we're gonna fly through the last things. Once again, Everything Dead and Dying, issue 2. This is from Image Comics. This is such a great story because it is a zombie story that's people driven, and it's done in such a really cool way. If you didn't read issue 1, second prints are out now, but this is all about a guy who just was always really secluded, and he finally found like the perfect person to be with, his husband, and they had a child, and it was a wonderful story, and it felt like this perfect thing. And I love the balance between the story of him building that life and the zombie apocalypse in issue 1. It's so good, so like masterfully balanced. And in this story, he is actually we have in this issue, I should say, we see how that wasn't always perfect, and we see some of the problems that they had in their relationship, and that balances with people coming in to the town for the first time that he lives in. He lives in the town above the hill, and these people coming looking for the stragglers and survivors who come to scavenge for things during a zombie apocalypse. And it's the first time that somebody has approached his house in a long time. And if you read issue 1, you might know that he has kept his family. He's kept the zombies, and he's lived his life on this routine for not just his family, but the whole town. And he's kind of just like everybody that's still alive in town is just living with the zombies as it was. And now these people are here, and of course they don't understand that concept. And so he is using this, like this is a moment where he's like, I have to defend my family, and kind of fight for it. And you see him fighting for his family with the emotional problems they had pre-zombie apocalypse, and yet the fighting for the family like with the zombie apocalypse. It's such a cool concept, and I love the way they do it. Speaking of cool concepts, this book is in here entirely for the concept. I just love it so much. This is Artillery Weapons of Art from Invader Comics. I'm super excited about this concept. It follows 2 kids who 2 young people, probably like in their 20s, who are homeless on the streets, and their big thing is that they are graffiti artists. And one day one of the kids is like, hey, I don't really feel good, and so they end up, their partner takes them into a free clinic, and they aren't able to stay with them because they're homeless and they're not family, and so they can't stay. And so when they leave, they're actually approached by a woman who's like, hey, I have a center that's got food, it's got warm spaces to stay, you should come stay with me and my people. And when they get there, they are told by this woman that they're Mona Lisa, like from the painting, and that something is happening, and that art is being stripped from all of our world. And they basically, when the world was created, there was like the ecosphere, and then there's the biosphere, and then there's the noosphere. And the noosphere is the world of imagination and creativity, and it's been created by all of these, Michelangelo, Raphael, Leonardo, all of the amazing painters throughout time, but not just them, but also the comic creators and all these different people. And now with the creation of things like AI, it's getting wiped out, and all the gates and the pathways to create the world of creativity are being destroyed. And so they asked this kid to essentially join their battle to kind of save it. And the kid thinks that that they've been drugged and that there's no way that this is real, until they discover that the thing that is making their partner sick is that they've lost the ability to be creative and their ability to believe in art. And they realize that this battle is actually a true thing that's happening. And so they have to, this whole thing becomes kind of around the idea that, yes, we have to fight to save art, and that art itself is the weapon that we fight to save art with. Really great start from Invader, and I can't wait to see what they do with that story. And then lastly, I was really excited. I almost didn't get to read this book, and then I did, and I was like, oh my gosh, this was so much fun. This is Endeavor.
Your hands are covering the title.
Oh, sorry. Okay, it's so low. This is Endeavor issue 1 from Distillery and from Dr. Stephanie Phillips. This is one of the things that I think I love more than anything is when Stephanie Phillips does stories that are related to pirates and boats, because Stephanie's from Tampa and said that pirates and boats are some of her favorite stories. And she does this great job all the time when she does these kinds of stories of blending modern pirating and history and historical stuff together. And this is another great example of that. This is about a family who they just lost their mom, and the dad decides to take the two teenagers on a trip that the mom had already booked for them, which is on the Endeavor. And so you're supposed to actually experience the 1700s style experience of going across around New Zealand on James Cook's boat. And so these kids are the one kid's I love history and I love storytelling, and so she's so excited to do it, and of course it was something her mom wanted her to do. And the brother is I don't want to do this. And then the captain is kind of annoyed because there's 9 kids on the boat total, and he's can we kick the kids off? Why did we book kids on this trip? And they're everything is good. There's also there's a storm coming and we're gonna have to go around it, and so we're gonna have to be on this boat even longer because this isn't a cruise ship, this is an old boat. They rebuilt the Endeavor, and it's an old wooden boat, and so it's this is gonna be a terrible thing. We get the backstory of the Endeavor, which of course is a boat where everybody got super sick and a mysterious virus broke out and nobody knew why. Much like what happens in this story, they find a mysterious person in a life raft, and they bring her on the boat, and when they do, some weird stuff starts happening. This is definitely setting up something that's going to be a very big adventure, not just on a boat, but in a very Lord of the Flies almost kind of way. Something crazy is going to happen. We see a lot of it happen. Stephanie puts so much in this book. I think Stephanie's storytelling has just gotten stronger and stronger each year, and this is it's such a good start, and I can't wait. And of course the cinematic scope of a Distillery book just leads so well to the bigness of the story, but there is a lot to come, and I can't wait to see what it is. All right, we did it. We made it through all 85 books. Matt's going to slide them back over here so that I can show you. See, all of these, plus the 3 that I just talked about. I know.
They're not even in the camera.
They're not even in the camera. Plus these 3 that I just said were my favorites. Oh my gosh, this is a huge 2 weeks, so many books. This is actually hurting my hand to hold it up like this because that's my bad wrist I'm balancing with. So we're going to just slide it back over there. And before we go, I'm going to tell you about some of the other books that are in stock this week. I'm not going to go through the 2 weeks, just the other new releases. I'm really excited that Astrobots issue 1, volume 2, issue 1 came back. This is, if you are fans of Transformers and you've never read Massive's Astrobots, you definitely need to read it. It's such a good, also kind of Transformer thing. Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out this week with issue 1. This is based off of the new cartoon, the world of the new movie, the Seth Rogen movie with the Trent Reznor soundtrack. That world. We've got issue 2 of Blade Runner with the new Black Lotus Las Vegas story. And then we've got a bunch of the Age of Revelation books. Iron and Frost came out this week, Rogue Storm, Sinister Six, and an Unbreakable X-Men. If you are picking that up, there's always a ton of stuff. There is a checklist in the back. Absolute Flash came out this week, Captain America, Catwoman issue 80. I'm really excited to see that Catwoman has hit issue 80. That's so great. One World Under Doom issue 8. Fantastic Four is crossing over with Gargoyles right now. That launched this week, and Godzilla is also destroying the Marvel Universe. Incredible Hulk issue 30 hit. Justice League Red, we are on issue 2. We sold out of issue 2. That's not it. New Gods issue 11 hits. That's also exciting to say. And also, with New Gods doing so well, don't forget, DC, that you could put Jack Kirby's New Gods into a compact, and that would be awesome for all the people who are loving this series to be able to get that original for $9.99. Nightwing issue 131, Spawn issue 369, Amazing Spider-Man issue 14, Superman Unlimited issue 6. Last week, DCKO launched. This week, we had a tie-in to that with Titans issue 28. Big things are going to happen in a lot of those tie-in stories, so don't miss them. Wonder Woman issue 26. And then we had a lot of great trade paperbacks launched this week as well. Iptas from the Abyss came out with volume 2, so this is issues 5 through 8 of Iptas from the Abyss. We got Haunt. This is the complete collection, which is Robert Kirkman, Ryan Otley, Greg Capullo, Todd McFarlane, like all kinds of stuff doing this story right here. So that's an all-star lineup of people that you're going to want to make sure you grab that if you're a fan of. The Power Rangers Death Ranger Part 2. This is collects Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 21 through 22, as well as Power Rangers 21 through 22, Power Rangers Unlimited the Death Ranger, and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 100. Apparently I brought 2 different copies of that. We're going to do these 2 last. Let This One Be a Devil, issues 1 through 4. This is the whole series from James Tynion and Steve Fox. World Tree, speaking of James Tynion, volume 3 of World Tree came out, which is issues 12 through 16. And then 2 trade paperbacks that we have been highly anticipating at Bad City because they are fan favorite series that people have been wanting to pick up. First is Hal from Ahoy Comics. This is the entire series. Crazy literary science fiction story that really does feel like you're reading a science fiction book about an extraterrestrial invasion in the 1950s. It's so cool. If you didn't read it, you absolutely should. And then come talk to Matt about it because it was one of his favorite books this year. And then Lilith. This is the first arc of Lilith, issues 1 through 5 from Vault Comics and Corinne Howell. Absolutely love this book. Somehow both the best romantic comedy and a spicy demon story all at the same time. So you definitely need to read that book as well. One of my favorites of the year. All right. That's all the books I have for you. I know you can't believe it. That was it. That was all of them. There wasn't very many. I know. But no, that's all the books we have for you. Of course, Wednesday is New Comic Book Day, so there will be a whole bunch more. Don't forget to join us this Friday from 5 to 9 for our Gothic Book Fair and Night Market. Tons of great vendors, tons of artists, tons of fun, tons of great Halloween stuff. Wear your best goth clothes, wear your best Halloween costume, whatever way you want to celebrate, but come celebrate with us. And then bring the kids out on Saturday from 11 to 4 for Batastic Halloween, free comics, free crafts, fun time to have with the whole family. And from 11 to 2, you can trick or treat all the other businesses in the Old Manatee neighborhood and get some candy and chance to win prizes. So it's a great time to celebrate Halloween and also a great time for comic books. So we will see you in the shop all this week for a bunch of fun. But until then, happy reading, everyone. Bye.